there, viewers, and welcome back to the Self-Made Auto Channel. How does your shop handle comebacks? We will talk about that today because we are sitting inside the 2008 Chevrolet. This is the half ton that what did we do? We epoxied the little nipple back into the green weenie cold air intake, and then we fixed the vacuum leaks and whatnot. And the fella brought it back, what is it, 3 or 4 days later, said his money light is on, wants that bad boy checked out again because that dang light's back on. However, this is where it's important to have good documentation. So let me get the I printed out the original invoice here, so let's take and get this thing scooted over here, and here we go. So I'm going to read what is my description under my labor charge for, for diagnosing a car. And I always take good documentation, printouts, codes that were listed on the cars, and make specific notes if the monitors aren't set, which, if you guys remember, on this vehicle they were not because the codes had been cleared. So we're going to wait for this to pull out the new codes. I'll read you what we have here. So this is what I had wrote. And he writes, labor to diagnose codes P0171 and P0174, lean engine. I found 2 vacuum leaks, one on the back of the intake where the brake booster hose hooks up. It was half disconnected. The other one was in the PCV system. It was missing the fresh air hose to the air intake. I drilled a hole in the aftermarket intake, added a 3/8 elbow, and installed a new hose. The elbow was only able to be installed with epoxy. If this unit fails in the feature, recommend replacing with the correct cold air intake system or installing the OEM system back on the truck. Then I charged for the hose connector and $2 for the epoxy. And the light's back on. And it's not on for the same reason what we fixed. He now has a P0455. Large evap leak. Mil code, fail-sense, clear history, and current. So that sums that up. So if there's any question with your customer why the light's back on, of course there are, literally hundreds of reasons the light can come on. This problem is entirely different from the initial problem. Initial problem was lean running, which is clearly fixed. We not only have written documentation of it, and I'm not saying the guy's accusing me of anything, but this is where it can be confusing. Car comes in, the light's on. I've expressed this to you guys over and over again, and trying to run the full drive cycle so things like this don't happen. Of course, on a GM, you can't run the full drive cycle in one day. So, and this customer working in a shop, working at a Chrysler dealer, he's obviously aware of this. But I just wanted to bring that point up. So first thing we're going to do, I guess we can just fix the truck while we're here. We're just going to pop into the engine, and we're going to go look at some evap data. We're going to do a purge and seal, and we want to look at fuel tank pressure. While we're doing this, select our data items if it allows us to select the correct data PIDs that we need. Hopefully it does. Sort them out, A, B, C. We want engine speed so you guys can see that. Vent solenoid command, purge solenoid command, and we'll grab our fuel tank pressure PIDs. And I want them all on the same screen, so I'm going to get rid of engine speed. Fuel tank pressure is at 0, which is good. Resting voltage on a GM is approximately 1.5 volts. So let's start it up. Canister vent is closed. What's interesting is it's already pulling a vacuum on the tank and we haven't done anything. So we're going to turn on our purge here. We should be sucking the tank right down to nothing. And it's not. You can see our tank pressure, our purge solenoid should be full open right now. So let's seal it. This is pretty interesting. Not what I expected to see. Let's let it vent. And it is not venting. Oh, there it goes. Alright, so it just vented the tank. Alright, let's let that close again. so it's not venting. It's going into a natural vacuum. Let's jump our purge solenoid all the way up to 100%. Purge solenoid's at 100%. It should be sucking the sides together on that tank. Seal the system off. Very interesting. Let's open that vent again. I think it takes it a minute to pop open. Our canister vent valve is working. We need to go look at the purge. Ooh, the mean grain. See if our epoxy held up. So far, so good. A lot of you guys mentioned in the first video you would have put a rubber grommet in there and then stuck the 90-degree nipple through there. That would have worked also. That was a great idea. A few other folks stated that they would have used tire valve stem, take the guts out of it, and then, you know, popped it through from the inside, which is another fantastic idea. I should throw this stuff out there before we do it, so I can get all your guys' good ideas. Where's the purge? Purge hides right there. Tell you what, knowing the history of purge valves, I'm just looking, I see it is plugged in. I tell you what we're gonna do. Sometimes if you take a purge that is stuck and you just touch the sucker, it starts working. So let's do a purge and seal again, where we should be drawing a vacuum on a tank. We know the canister vent valve closes because it goes into a natural vacuum. As soon as it's closed, it starts building vacuum because the fuel is cold. What we'll do is we'll turn it up, and then we'll reach back here and we'll just give it a little bit of a tap. And if all of a sudden, you know, she starts giving it the old suck job, then we'll know that that purge is good. If we tap on it, nothing's happening, then we can, you know, reach down there, unplug it, check its inputs, make sure it has, you know, vacuum, which it should. I mean, it's got a 3/8 line coming out of the intake. Make sure that's good. Then we have to make sure that line is good from here back to the tank. We've got it running despite the squeaky belt. We're going to increase the pressure, which is going to go to not venting. It's going to close the back door, so to speak. We're going to open this baby up. We'll take her almost full throttle. We'll go 90% duty cycle on it, or 90% purge. It's not venting. You can see our fuel tank pressure is pretty steady at atmospheric pressure. The vent valve should be closed. I'm going to give it a whack. See what happens. Nothing happened. Okay, so while we're right here, I'm going to run grab a test light. We're going to unplug it. We're going to make sure we got a command. I still have it commanded at 90%. I'm just going to unplug it. We're going to stick our test light across it. And it's lit up. You can see that, can you? Ah, she's blinking. Alright. We'll plug that back in. Let's plug back in. And now, get you guys over here. Let me get something to stand on. I want to unplug the hose from the back of the purge. And there's absolutely no vacuum coming out of it whatsoever. This is the hose that runs back to the canister, that when the purge solenoid here is open, it should be sucking. So now we want to make sure it has supply. We're going to unhook the supply side. And you can hear that it has supply, so it's either physically plugged or just jammed. Yeah. Well, usually you just breathe on these things, they start working again. So that's it. Nothing more to do. It needs a purge solenoid. So that's pretty much it on this one, folks. Napper and Advance do not stock a canister purge valve for this, oddly enough. Which I'm surprised. Either they both sold out or they just don't keep them on the shelf. But it's a quick, easy diagnosis. Let me plug that in so I don't forget. And I guess the main purpose of the video wasn't, you know, how to diagnose your gross evap leak. I suppose it may raise the question as to, you know, why does that show up as a gross evap leak instead of, you know, no purge flow, something like that, you know, or purge solenoid fault. That is because the only way the ECM can tell Is there a purge solenoid fault? Is electrically. And electrically, it's probably fine. If we do a resistance check on the coil, I'm sure it'll come up good. Otherwise, it would have thrown a code for, the purge valve. So what it does is it commands it on, and the way that it tells if that's working or not is, it's going to, check it electrically, is the circuit complete? Then it assumes the purge is good, and then it's going to, close the canister vent valve. It's going to draw a vacuum on the tank, and then shut the purge back off and see how long it takes that vacuum to decay out of the tank. As far as the ECM is concerned, everything is working. The canister vent valve is working, electrically it's closing, the circuit's complete. So it closes that, it turns this on, which it thinks the purge valve is working. It turns it on, it does not see any vacuum change in the tank, so it says, oh, must be a large leak because the vent's closed, the purge solenoid's wide open, or whatever percentage it has. It doesn't see a change in fuel tank pressure, so it says large leak. That's all it can assume. If this was open electrically, open circuited, short circuited, anything like that, boom, you get a code for the purge. If your canister vent valve, open circuit, short circuit, you get what? PO 449. Super common on GMs. In this case, we need a new purge. Once we put that on, then we can determine whether or not we have any leaks. In my opinion, I assume we have no leaks, because simply by closing that canister vent valve, you guys see me do this in a lot of videos. You want to know if your GM or whatever you're working on has any leaks, close the system off. Key on, engine off, close it. Get it in a spot where you get some temperature change. It's either going to, drop into a vacuum, or it's going to go into a pressure. If you close that canister vent valve and your fuel tank pressure sensor just stays dead steady, then you likely have either a gross leak or a small leak somewhere. It's usually a small leak. So that's it. I don't know where I was going with that, other than the fact that I wanted to talk about, vehicles coming back to your shop. I guess the key there is to have good documentation. When you fix a customer's car, have a printout of your codes, which you can do with this scan tool or most scan tools anyways. If you're using them on a professional level in the shop, you can print them out. Print out the list of codes, print out whether or not the readiness monitors were set, and just document exactly what you fix. Exactly which codes, which wire you repaired, which component you replaced, and what it pertained to. I'm usually pretty diligent about that, so that way when something like this happens, it comes back in, it's no big deal. You can show your customer, here's what we fixed the first time. You've obviously the drive cycles ran, it failed the EVAP monitor through this code, and here's what you need now. Absolutely nothing to do with the original repair. So that's it. If you guys are in the shop, work in a shop, employee, technician, mechanic, owner, service writer, let me know down in the comment box how you handle it, or how you think I handled it, if it's the right way. And while you're down there, leave any other questions, comments, or criticisms you have. And just remember, viewers, if I can do it, you can do it. Thanks for watching.